Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of the Johnkew podcast, where we talk about all things related to pickleball gear and technology. I'm John, and I'm joined by my good pal Eddie.
Hey, John.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. What a day today.
It was a big day. We're both calorie deprived at this point.
So much fun, though.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of paddles we tested. This was the finals. If you're just tuning in, you haven't seen the previous podcast, we did a whole paddle bracket where we compared 20-something paddles, maybe more, and scored them subjectively based on various metrics and attributes and came up with a final 8. And then we played with those 8 today head-to-head and scored them each according to the points we got with each paddle after trading them. And we have a winner and a silver
surprise
and
winner.
A bronze, a surprise winner.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, you'll have to stick around to find out. How was your week, Eddie, your past week?
It was good. I was in North Carolina again for business, but I always managed to find time to squeeze in a little pickleball. So visited the local Lifetime there. Hi to Stuart and Jeremiah. Frank, guys, great to see you again. Just always a good time.
Yes, you visit that Lifetime a lot.
Yeah, Cary, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Excellent.
There's a local park not too far from there called Method Road Park, and they've got, I want to say they have 6 pickleball courts outside.
Okay.
And it's right near NC State University. And it was packed with 18 to 22-year-olds. I mean, probably 5 courts waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
So much fun, though.
Every time I go to a state that's near sea level and humid, it reminds me how different pickleball is here up in the mountains with thin air and,
You could just
dry
whack the ball all day long and it's going to stay in.
Oh, yes. You can
so
take full
nice.
swings.
It's so nice.
Training at altitude. It's kind of like fighters, they train at altitude to get their cardio up to par. But yeah, you have to be more precise up here with your hits for sure.
How about you?
Entered a tournament. So Sarah, Jenny, and I played mixed doubles, and we won gold in the Dinkin Rally in Littleton, Colorado. So yeah, that was she played great. That was the first time we've played together in a tournament. It was 4.0 bracket. But good competition. It was a local tournament, but there were over 200 people registered, so decent turnout. And we had really good competition. We only dropped one game that entire tournament. Yeah, and that was in the finals. We went to 3 in the finals. Sarah Jenny is just a warrior, man. She's so nice and so cheery. But man, when she turns it on, she turns it on.
That backhand punch that she has, man, it is strong. It's like yours. I mean, there's nowhere to go if you're going to pick between the two of you.
Yeah. Everybody tried to speed up on her, and it was just like the finger wag.
Well, congratulations to you guys.
Well, I have a few shout-outs. A few people came up to me. Zach, your pal Zach, who you saw at the previous tournament.
Right.
Him and Annie were there playing in the same bracket. Unfortunately, we didn't get to play them. That would have been a lot of fun. But yeah, shout out to Zach and Annie. Also, Randy from Loveland came up and asked if I was Johnkew, and I said yeah. And so we had a nice little conversation. He watches all the reviews, and it was nice to hear from some viewers, face to face. And finally, Natalia came up and also asked if I was Johnkew. So I think she is from Littleton or somewhere around South Denver. And she actually submitted a question last week on our podcast, which didn't win, but she mentioned it to me. It was she actually gets more control out of the double black diamond 14 millimeter than she did with the 16 millimeter, and she has a tennis background, and it's just one of those things that like touch and feel on the paddle is so one-on-one subjective. One person loves a plush feeling paddle, the other one loves a really stiff paddle face where you feel like an extension of your hand. So that's one of those things that you just can't really nail down objectively.
That might be even more true for tennis players. I mean, you string a racket tight for control. You would think it's the opposite. You would do it for power, but no, you do it for control.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what we're seeing here in these 14 millimeters, kind of like tight strings, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, excellent. Yeah, so that was really cool to talk to
That's neat.
People that watched the show.
And you had another visitor today.
We did, yeah. We were at Lifetime, and do you remember his name?
Shoot.
I did not write it down, but
I don't know if he ever said.
Really nice gentleman. I did ask him, but we were so busy I forgot. But he came up and recognized me and doesn't watch podcasts, but he got some photos with the three of us and signed a hat for him. And yeah, he's a big viewer of the reviews. So it was really cool. Well, we've got very little time today. We've got to wrap it up. My kid's got a concert. You've got a time limit, so let's keep it moving today. Let's move on
Right into the paddle bracket.
Well, let's first talk.
You want to wait?
We had some topics we're going to discuss about the PPA, but we need to put those on the back burner. Just take those off entirely because I did want to talk about issues with the new Joola Gen-3 paddles and my Colin Johns, which I used in the tournament. I used the Colin Johns Scorpeus Gen-3, won the tournament with it. But I started the last couple of matches, I started thinking that I was like, man, do I have the yips? I can't keep my drops in, and my drives are going 6 feet out. So I had to really dial back my game and play super cautious in the last 2 matches we had. And then I took the paddle out yesterday to play with some friends at Lifetime, and I was playing with the Anna first and doing just fine, pulled out the Colin, and the first drive I hit the back wall, and I was like, I did not hit that ball that much, and it soared, and then I pressed on it, and sure enough, it's crunchy, and it's crunchy right around that interface between that extended foam, their kind of foam barrier, and the polypropylene. And same thing happened with Chris Olson's Perseus paddle. I've gotten a lot of very recent comments on the Joola review of people that say their paddle's core crushed, paddle's broken, and it's just everything seems to be, there are a lot of people coming out right now saying that their paddles are breaking, which is concerning, and especially, given that it happened to me, given it happened to Chris, what are the odds? And, I just think that what's happening is that the polypropylene closest to that foam that's flexing, you have the foam, which is flexible, you have the polypropylene, which is more brittle, and it's going to flex most closest to the foam, and eventually that polypropylene, given the flexion, will break down and lose its integrity, and that's what you're getting with the crunching. I'm going to dissect it. First, I want to retest the serve speed on this thing, because I bet there's a 25% at least increase in the power output on this paddle. It's uncontrollable. There's no way to control this thing. Just hugely unfortunate. And yeah, I would have thought that Joola would have caught this before the release, because the Joola pros were playing with these paddles for 6 months or so before the release, the alphas. Yeah. But what I think happened is that, the PPA paddles are tested. They bring a stack of paddles in, and the one they played with last tournament doesn't pass deflection, and that's right before the core crushing happens. So they end up playing with a new one each tournament. So it just didn't catch on, as it should have.
So you're noticing this core crushing in the polypropylene area?
Yeah.
Or the foam area?
It's right in that intersection between the foam and the polypropylene. I think I'm almost positive it's the polypropylene that's crushing. It sounds exactly like a core crushed paddle for a Gen 2 thermoform paddle. I'll cut it open. The ones I've cut open seem to have not only the core crushing, but also disbonding. I asked Chris to look at his and see if he can separate the core from the surface layers with a knife, and he said it was not disbonded. So yeah, but it makes sense if you think about it, just in terms of the flexion right around that foam. It's just going to break down the polypropylene.
You think it's possible that the foam is separating from the polypropylene?
Possibly. That'd be another form of disbonding, right? Yeah, creating kind of gap.
But that seems to be where, if you were to think about like that trampoline effect,
mm-hmm.
and that's where it's most evident right there at the end of the polypropylene.
Yeah. Let me grab the Colin and I'll show where it's cracking.
How long have you been playing with this paddle, John?
So I was maining the paddle since I went to the tournament with it. Now no longer, but probably 3 weeks steady, 4 weeks. Whenever it came out, I started playing, mixing that with the Anna and the Perseus at first. The Perseus dropped off. I've been going back and forth between this and the Anna. I'd say probably 2 weeks of consistent play with this, if I were just playing with this alone. And normally, when I've tested paddles before that have broken, become disbonded or core crushed, it's usually right in the sweet spot where you hear the crunching. It's not so much the case. You can hear a little bit of it in the sweet spot, but if I move my thumbs up here and press, that's where it's really crunchy.
Do you still have those dissected Joola paddles?
Yeah, good point.
Right, so if you were to compare where that sound is
Yeah, exactly. So this is the paddle cut in half like a sandwich, and the crunching's coming from right near the top, right up here, just above the sweet spot, and it's about an inch, I'd say, below this foam. So, I think the foam is causing the polypropylene to flex in a manner that it just can't handle, and it eventually disbonds, crushes, and
Yeah, it's right in that top inch and a half,
Yeah.
2 inches.
yeah. So, I mean, it's unfortunate. They do have a year warranty, so the paddles all come with that NFC chip. And it took me forever. I'm pretty sure that the Joola Connect app is not even a thing yet, but you can still register your paddle. You just hold your iPhone up to the handle and make sure it's the right side. Yeah, I had to flip it around a couple of times. The IFC reader on an iPhone is adjacent to the camera. Hold it up to the handle, and a window will automatically pop up in Safari. So for whatever phone you have, it should do the same. And you can register your paddle there and submit the warranty claim through there. And they definitely need to, and I think they will, warranty, broken cores for sure.
Potentially a lot of broken cores, though.
Potentially a lot. I mean, who knows how many they've sold, and they're becoming more and more frequent. These paddles play amazing out of the box, and even more amazing as they break in. And boy, this broken core happened like that over the course of a few games. Like I said, I noticed it in the last 2 matches of the tournament. The next day I took it out to the courts, and it was unplayable. So there we go. New news from Joola.
That is unfortunate.
Okay. Well, let's move on then. Let's get to the results of our finals week for the paddle bracket.
Yeah, you want to talk about how we got here?
Yeah, why don't you give us a rundown?
Yeah, so we've been, over the course of the last several podcasts, like you said, giving our subjective ratings to the paddles that we had at our disposal, probably about 24 of them, giving them a score of 1 to 5 or 0 to 5 on pop, power, spin, control, sweet spot, and an X Factor score, just a little bonus score. And so we took the top 8 of those 24 paddles and put them in a head-to-head challenge, a single elimination bracket. A very interesting day, to say the least. So what we did is we took the highest scoring paddle and went head-to-head with the number 8 seed. Likewise with the 4 and 5 seed, the 2 and 7 seed, and then the 3 and the 6 seed. So those were our Elite 8 quarterfinal matchups coming into today.
Right. And yeah, for clarification, our scoring system was entirely subjective, not based on
100%.
any kind of metrics or anything like that. It's what we felt about paddles. We were just having fun with this. It's not related to the paddle database, although it's going to correlate. Right? We can tell what paddles get good spin, and that's going to match what's on the paddle database. But yeah, so all of those scores that we pitted these paddles up against each other in the qualifiers were just our opinions. And today, we took them out to the courts, and we thought the best way to kind of compare these and put them head-to-head was to play skinny singles instead of doubles, because with doubles, there's, you have partners,
variables.
too many variables. So, and we didn't want to play full court singles because that's a different game entirely. Most people want to know how a paddle plays in doubles. So that's the best way to replicate doubles is skinny singles and keep the variables low, just me and you against each other. So we'd take the paddles that were pitted against each other. So, for example, the Joola Scorpeus 14 millimeter and the Volair Mach 2 were placed 1 and 8. So those were pitted against each other. I went out on the court with the Anna. You went out with the M2F. We played a game to 11.
Rally scoring.
Yep. And then we switched paddles and played another game using the opposite paddles.
Hopefully canceling out any personal error or player strength or whatever it may be.
So, yeah, and it ended up, there's some interesting results.
I was surprised, to say the least.
How should we do this? Should we jump into kind of round by round?
Yeah.
Or do we? Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. But I want to just say, any of these 8 paddles, I feel like, man, they're all solid paddles. I could take any one of them to a tournament and feel like I could play with a lot of confidence.
Absolutely. There was not a single paddle that I played with today where I was like, why did we vote this one into the top 8?
Or the opposite.
Right.
This one's so dominant that it's a clear winner.
Yeah. They all played really good. I was happy with all of them. And I think the final scores, maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 surprises, were about what I feel like the paddle performs in our hands, right?
I totally agree.
And it matched, both. It's not like we do have different play styles, but I think the dominant paddles were the dominant paddles for both of us, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And they were a lot of close games, a lot of
true battles.
1 or 2 point differences there in the end.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start off with our number 1 seed going against number 8, the Volair Mach 2.
Okay. Quarterfinals, round 1. The Scorpeus came out on top there. Scorpeus came out on top, but it was not a huge win. So I'm looking at the scores
22 to 19.
22 to 19. Excellent. Did you tabulate them up?
The first couple I did.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's pretty close. So that's the top scoring and the lowest scoring out of the top 8 paddles. Anna was top. Mach 2.4 is the lowest for our subjective ratings. And then to get that close of a score when they played was pretty impressive.
Any thoughts on either of those paddles?
That was a matchup that were polar opposites, so it was hard to go back and forth between the Anna and the Mach 2.4s and vice versa, just because the Anna is such a powerhouse and the Mach 2.4s is such a control paddle. So, but they both played exceptional like I wanted them to. I tried to match my game to the paddle, be more aggressive with the Anna, be more control-oriented and reset more and drop more with the Mach 2.4s, and they just both performed great.
Absolutely. I actually went the opposite. I tried to play more control with the Anna and more power with the Volair because I feel like I have a little bit more margin to work with there in terms of a full swing.
Right.
But man, they're both very impressive paddles. I like that Volair. The more I play with that, the more I like it.
For sure. All right. Should we move on to the next 2?
Yeah, the number 4 seed, the Black Diamond Infinity from 6-0.
Mm-hmm. And the number 5 seed was the Honolulu Pickleball Company J2K, so their Kevlar version of their hybrid
My absolute favorite of their paddles.
Yeah, me too. It's
in fact, I'll even say the only paddle of theirs that I actually like. But
well, to be fair, you did not play with the J2 yet, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so you played with all the elongated ones.
And I played with the J2K Pro, but I much prefer this one.
I do too. We might as well get the paddles out while we're talking about them.
And this is a very, very deep blue, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, you could mistake this for black, but
it looks black.
It comes in a red too, which is really pretty.
It's a prettier
Yeah.
paddle, I think. But blue serves its purpose too. The winner of this was the J2K, and I think this is one of the biggest point differentials we had. So it looks like 22. Did you total the
22 to 13 is what I had there.
13. Okay,
yeah, so a 9-point differential. Probably our biggest gap.
I think so.
Of all of our matches.
The J2K just performed so well. It felt at home in my hands. I didn't feel like I needed to kind of adapt, and that's what I did feel like with the Black Diamond Infinity. And maybe it's just because it is so different than what I usually play with. I usually play with something with more twist weight, more swing weight, not an edgeless paddle. The hand speed on this is great, but the trade-offs just weren't there for me today. I couldn't get the sweet spot where I wanted it, and I couldn't quite drop where I wanted it. I kept dumping them into the net, and the drives weren't on point or as hard as I wanted them. So, yeah, I didn't do as well with the Infinity.
I would say of all 8 paddles, this is the one that takes the greatest degree of just adjustment over time. I think it's there. It can be extracted. It just takes longer. And with these other paddles, it's just pick it up and go. And so maybe that's not a fair comparison, but that's what we're stuck with today.
Yeah. Winner of the round 2 was quarterfinals for this matchup was the J2K.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on the J2K today?
I really enjoyed the paddle.
It's pretty good.
I think, I'd love to review this. I hope I get the time to review it because I think it deserves one. It's just a solid paddle. It might even be a little more forgiving than the Ruby. I need to run the specs on it in terms of the power and pop and spin. It spins up there, I know. It's well above top tier. And I feel like it's plusher than the Ruby. It has a softer feel and just maybe a little more control-oriented than the Ruby. But I loved it. Did what I wanted.
So Honolulu Pickleball Company into the semifinals.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next
matchup was the
Chorus Shapeshifter.
Yeah, the number 2 seed, Chorus Shapeshifter, against the 7 seed
Pro Drive Encounter. Man, that was a close one. In fact, we split games on that one.
We did, yeah.
With the other ones, it was, the paddle that won those matches won both games. I won with it and you won with it. This one we split and it was incredibly close.
Yeah.
17 to 16, right? is what
difference.
I have.
And the shapeshifter just squeaked out a win over the Pro Drive encounter. And that was another one where the paddles were quite different. And the Pro Drive is edgeless, but it's also elongated and very powerful. And the shapeshifter is just extremely well-rounded. It does nothing exceptional, but it does everything well, which is a great spot to be in as we're seeing with the Joolas breaking and the Gen-3 technology is having issues, just like the Gen-2 did. It's nice to have a paddle you can trust, and it's not going to break as far as we know, and it just does everything well.
Yeah, with the Pro Drive, on this particular power paddle, I did try and use more of a power game, hoping to maybe overwhelm you a little bit with the core shapeshifter. Mm-hmm. I don't think it worked out that well, but it's a strategy that I tried.
I did too. And you just reset it every time with the shapeshifter because it's such a good.
It's good. It's very
all-around
predictable.
paddle. Yeah. So it was a good matchup. It was fun to pit those two against each other. And yeah, just a 1 point difference, but the shapeshifter made it through to the semis.
17 to 16. And on to our final Elite 8 quarterfinal match, the number 3 seed Thrive Azul, another Kevlar paddle, versus the number 6 seed, the 11-6-2-4 Hirache Control X.
That is a mouthful. And not just Control X. Control X Kevlar.
Control X
because there's more than one Control X.
Good Lord. These came out of our
Hirache
Kevlar week a couple weeks ago.
And I can't remember. Does the Hirache come in red also, or is it just that blue tint?
Just this purplish blue.
Okay.
But man, that also looks good.
The blue against the blue. Yeah, so these two, I've not had enough time with the Hirache to give it a fair kind of assessment. It scored pretty high on both of our initial assessments when we played with it. And so did the Thrive, so that's why they all made it into the top 8. But, I don't know if it's because I'm used to the Thrive, but man, I played a lot better with the Thrive than I did with the Hirache today.
Yeah, I'm not used to the Thrive, but I played the hell out of it today. It's an amazing paddle, a great sweet spot, and that's, I think, the differential between that and this today was that while the extra length is great, the elongated sweet spot, the narrower sweet spot, I think held me back from being at my best on this one today.
For sure. I couldn't find the sweet spot as easily as I could on the Thrive with the Hirache. And to be fair, we do not have perimeter weighting on the Hirache. Probably should have played with it a little more and used some, just because I felt a lot of twisting compared to the Thrive, which does have perimeter weighting, So, and it's wider, so it's going to have a larger twist weight, larger sweet spot. And just more forgiving, but the Thrive had the power. I was able to control it today more than I had been in the past, so it's just kind of a good combination of everything for me today, and it showed in both of our scores. So do you have the totals?
I don't on that one.
So it looks like the Azul has 22 and the Hirache has 10. That's a pretty big, pretty huge.
That's a big gap.
Differential. Yeah. So the Azul.
That's actually our biggest gap of the day.
It is the biggest gap of the day, yeah.
So the Azul goes into the final 4 semifinals.
Let's go. On to the semifinals. So we have 4 paddles in the semis. We have the Anna versus the J2K and the Shapeshifter versus the Azul.
Yeah, we're going to put these brackets up on someplace, right?
Yeah.
Into the video or your webpage?
I'll put it as B-roll in the video.
Awesome.
And on the website, JohnKewPickleball.com.
So Scorpeus versus the J2K. This was a close one, if I recall.
Yeah, I feel like the battle was, it's pretty close. So the Anna won out of these two, and the Anna got 20, and the J2K got, looks like 18. So 2 points. That's really close.
Yeah.
Closer than I remember. But I remember the whole time thinking, this J2K, man, it's nothing that was on my radar, and suddenly it's in the top 8,
totally
and suddenly it's in the semifinals, and it's playing really well.
Yeah.
But it just couldn't beat the power and the pop of the Anna. And both of us had been playing with the Anna. You've been playing with it almost as your main, right?
In between paddle testing and evaluation. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say I've been using that almost exclusively.
And I was trading back and forth between the Anna and the Colin. Couldn't decide which I like better. And I was leaning toward the Anna, and then the Colin broke. so yeah, I'm not saying this is going to be my primary. I might I do want to test more of these Joola Gen-3's to see if they're going to break. But yeah, we'll see. So it played great, and it edged out a win, squeaked out a win over the J2K.
Yeah, but the J2K put up a fight.
Sure
as the number 5 seed, I would say that's pretty astounding right there.
Yes, it is. And then the Shapeshifter versus the Azul. Do you remember these games?
I remember them being very tight. I think this was maybe one of our tighter matches.
And there was the other one that was split. So the Azul ended up squeaking out a win over the Shapeshifter. So it looks like we have a total of 19 for the Shapeshifter and 21 for the Azul.
Okay, so 2 points.
Another 2 point, which I love. I love that the differentials are becoming narrower as we move into
really
the
interesting.
semifinals, and the championship round was no different. So do you remember much about this game between the Azul and Shapeshifter, these games?
I remember them being very close, and that makes sense. I feel like, these paddles are they're different, but they are probably more similar than, say, a Scorpeus versus a J2K.
Right. Yeah.
They're both fairly strong all-around paddles.
Yeah. I think I did better with the Shapeshifter than the Azul, and vice versa for you. And your point squeaked out a win for the Azul. But yeah, I think it just, the Shapeshifter was doing everything I wanted. The Azul was a little bit more difficult to control, but still, it had an edge on the power and pop over the Shapeshifter.
What I like about both of these paddles is just their flickability. You can put a lot of wrist action on both these paddles.
Right. Yeah,
versus a pro drive encounter or something along those lines. It's just going to be a little bit heavier in the swing weight.
All right, on to the championship round, the finals. So a game each between the Anna Bright Scorpeus, Joola Gen-3, and the Thrive Azul. I've loved the Azul since I hit it day one, but I did not expect it to make it into the championship round.
It was our number 3 seed, I believe.
Yeah.
So
that was a surprise to me
there.
also. So each time I played with it, I was
Why were you
this is a good
surprised?
paddle. I don't know. I think it's just because all the new paddles coming out, and I've been hitting several different paddles, and it seems like forever ago since I did the play testing for the Azul and did the review, even though it was pretty recently. But it was just kind of pushed a little back in my memory. But every time I picked it up and played with it again, I'm like, yeah, it's a good paddle.
It is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
In all ways. Control, spin. I can't think of a dimension in which I would like to have more.
Yeah. So you want to hold the Azul. We got the championship round. So looks like first game out of the two, the Anna Bright won. Yep. 11-7.
11-7.
And the second game out of two.
Do you remember if you were using it on that game or if I was? It doesn't really matter, but
I can't remember.
I can't either.
Boy, why can't I remember that?
Because we played 16 games today.
I want to say I was playing with the Azul first, but I can't remember. Anyway, 11-7 on the first game, and then that flipped to 10-11 on the Azul for the second game, which makes our winner for our entire paddle bracket the number 1 gold medalist, the Thrive Azul. Yes,
Unbelievable.
It is. Yeah.
I would not have predicted that.
That's a scrappy paddle.
4 weeks ago.
Me neither.
Or last week.
Yeah.
Or today, this morning.
And I don't feel like my game kind of had a little highs and lows today, but I think we were both playing pretty steady, and I don't feel like I didn't give a paddle its due credit,
Oh, I thought your game was really tight today, and I thought I was playing pretty well today.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I don't think there was any, lack of player skill involved
Right.
In any of these wins or losses.
Yeah. I mean, any given day, a certain paddle can win over another, and all 8 of these are exceptional paddles.
Absolutely.
And,
Do
we
it
have
all
our play
again
styles.
tomorrow. See what happens.
Yeah, right. We have our different play styles, and these paddles probably match our play styles better than other people. But I think this is a really fun experiment, and all 8 paddles I would highly recommend to almost anybody.
I would say most of the paddles we play tested were really good paddles. Some better for certain players than others.
Right.
But these 8 are just they're incredible. So our gold Azul Silver Scorpeus. What about our bronze medal winner?
Yes, so we went back and dipped back into the semifinalists and had a bronze medal match. So that was between the J2K and the Shapeshifter.
Yeah. That was a crazy match.
That was a crazy match, the last one of the day, and we were neck to neck.
Yeah.
Both games.
I'm dying to know what the point differential was for that one.
So the first game, Shapeshifter won 11-10. You won that one.
Okay.
Second game, Shapeshifter won 11-9. I won that one, yeah. So that was... And it could have gone either way. That entire time we were like 1 point away, and then the other person would go up, the other person would go up. So these two, I mean, Shapeshifter won, got bronze, but J2K, man, I love that paddle. I think that's both of these paddles I love. That these two paddles kind of rose to the top of our entire bracket. Who would have guessed, weeks ago? We didn't know the J2K was getting I knew, but we didn't play with it yet. And then who knew that these two paddles in particular, out of these brands that not many people knew a few weeks ago, but now they're getting some recognition as they deserve,
Absolutely deserved.
Exceptional paddles.
So John, if you are going to a tournament tomorrow, which of these 4 paddles are you taking with you?
Just because I had the time and recency with the Anna, I would probably use the Anna, but there is an asterisk with the Anna. And that is, these Joolas are breaking. And, it
already sounds different.
It does sound different, which is part of the break-in. But the question is the break-in just a path to delamination, core corruption?
Great question.
We don't know at this point. So I guess we could say that the Anna or the Joolas might be disqualified from our finals due to PED issues.
I guess another question is the Ruby coming out of your bag for something that's on our list today?
So the Ruby, my old Ruby?
Yeah.
Boy, that's a tough one. Like I scored it high, and you didn't have the same feelings about it that I did. But, comparing a new Ruby to these other paddles, I'd be hard-pressed to say that it's any better than the J2K or the Shapeshifter. I think they're all neck to neck,
I might have to put some of my own money into some of these paddles. They're so good.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think you could probably reach out to any of these companies, and they would gladly send you a paddle. They're already doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Matt
it.
from Chorus is sending duplicates of every paddle he sends.
We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Makes this fun stuff like this possible.
Same for Honolulu Pickleball Company.
Yep.
Shout out to Jam from Honolulu. He's a fan of the pod and sends duplicates for both of us.
So our first annual paddle bracket challenge is complete.
Yes. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
And who knows, maybe we'll make it biannual. Because there's two big rushes.
Bi meaning twice per year, or bi meaning once every other year?
No. Twice a year. Yeah, so there are two big paddle rushes each year. One is in April, another is toward the end of the year, right before Christmas. So maybe with those new releases coming out in November, we might run another one of these.
Revisit our rubric, make sure we're hitting on all the points.
Yeah.
Some folks have talked about a maneuverability quotient. I think that would be an interesting ad.
That is nearly final. And Brian from Graffiti has been tweaking the formula and taking out some of the more esoteric stuff like muscle fiber size and that sort of stuff, just to boil it down to stuff he can actually, he's really comfortable with the math on. And that's going to be a thing where he's already got a formula up, like a calculator on his website, where if you have swing weight and the swing weight, static weight, and the balance point of the paddle, you can enter those 3 values in his calculator and get the maneuverability index. I think he's asking me what I want to call it. I think hand speed index is probably it's easier to say, it's easier to understand, hand speed. And now we're talking about, okay, it's on a scale of no, it's not a scale of 100. There's a raw score and then a percentile. And the percentile is low for high hand speed and high for low hand speed. So it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive. And I thought maybe we could just reverse it. We're still kind of ironing out the details, but it's almost ready. And it's going to be hugely informative. We're already kind of running tests on, okay, what happens if we add some weight to the base of the handle, drop the balance point, is that going to improve hand speed objectively? And indeed it does. There's going to be a cap. There's going to be a threshold where it becomes counterproductive to add too much weight. But Brian was surprised too. He's like, holy cow, I never would have expected this to be as effective as it is. So I think it's going to help us dial in and our paddles in terms of the weight distribution of our paddles and highlight the benefits of knowing the balance point and make a useful metric out of the balance point.
I think it'd be very interesting to see how this new metric maybe differs from swing weight, to see where where you might see some discrepancy there, and how that translates into felt paddle weight, I guess.
Yeah, all good. We'll find out in good time, right? So I wanted to, before we get into the winner for last week's giveaway, so the Rhombus Pulsar FX paddle, we have another giveaway this week from our friends at get211.com. So this retail store who have all of the current paddles on their website, and they have some brick and mortar stores in California. They'll be spreading into new areas soon. But yeah, the store has paddles, it has gear, it has clothing, shoes, and similar to what Pickleball Central is, or Frometh Pickleball. So he was kind enough to offer a free paddle of your choice, anything in his inventory, to this week's winner.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was thinking about maybe doing it for a question for next week that we answer, but I think what we'll do this week is just put it out there. The first person to email me with the subject line, get211, so that's GET, the number 2, spell out 11. The first person to email me at johnqpickleball@gmail.com will get that free paddle. Make it simple. So again, that's johnqpickleball@gmail.com. You can also go to my website, johnqpickleball.com, click on that, contact us. That sends the email to the same
So first person.
address. First person, put it in the title, get to 11.
If you've made it this far into the pod, good for you.
Yeah.
This is your prize.
There's an incentive maybe to listen to the podcast right when it comes out.
Well, when you see your metrics and they all drop off after this
Yeah.
point, you're to blame.
But they have the new Joolas, so if you're wary of the new Joola, don't want to spend $280 for a paddle that might break, but you take a free one, hey, go grab it.
That is very cool.
It's out there.
Exciting.
For you. And they also have a few rubies still in stock. So the elusive ruby that's always out of stock on 6Zero's website, they have those in stock. And if you just want to buy one, if you don't win this contest, you can use the code Johnkew at Get211's website for a 11% discount.
Thank you, Get211.
Yes. All good times.
So a question for this week.
We do have a winner from last week, and that winner is Nguyen Dex, 1993. His question was, or her question was, that now that a lot of people are starting to agree that we are currently at the power limit for paddles, what other innovations can companies do besides striving to be the hottest paddle on the market? I think this is a very timely question and appropriate for this week, because now we're seeing, not only is everybody kind of agreeing that we're at the cap for power, now we're seeing issues with the new Gen-3 paddles breaking. So now's a good time to kind of explore, okay, what is a paddle company going to do to make themselves relevant in this market? Is it just going to be more and more and more power, or are there other things that we can kind of look at? Do you have any ideas on this, Eddie?
I do, but I want to hear from you first.
Okay. So kind of dovetailing with what we just talked about with the hand speed index, I think weight distribution is going to be a big frontier, and paddles coming out, not just in terms of putting weight caps on the handle caps on the base of the handles, but also perimeter weighting. And paddles companies are doing this already, but I feel like they just kind of started doing this and distributing weight in certain areas, like the 4 and 8 o'clock positions on the paddle face to widen that twist weight. And before it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, the weight's kind of distributed where it is based on materials, and the balance point doesn't matter. Nobody's looking at that. Now paddle companies are realizing people do care about this. There are performance perks with where you put the weight And I think we're going to see a big revolution with that, aided in no small part by the hand speed index. When we learn more and more about balance point and where to put weight to improve the performance and the hand speed of a paddle, just like twist weight revealed and kind of opened everybody's eyes to the fact that, yes, a paddle is much more forgiving if there's some perimeter weighting. We don't want to put it too high unless you like that up there because that increases the swing weight too much. So finding the right points to kind of manipulate the balance point, the twist weight, and the swing weight on the paddle is going to be key moving forward, I think, to paddle companies.
What about spin?
Spin. That's another big one. I think people are sick of, including myself, including you, of playing with the paddle for 3 weeks and getting a significant loss in spin. And that's not just the grit, spray-on grit. It's also raw carbon fiber. Mm-hmm. It's also the peel ply Kevlar textures. It's an abrasive sport, and you're hitting a hard plastic ball with either grit or epoxy from a peel ply, creating that raw texture. It's going to wear down. And, now the paddles are up around well above $200. It just kind of stinks that the performance of the paddle drops off so significantly related to the spin after just a few weeks of play. So I think that's going to be a big issue moving forward. We're seeing that Pickle already came out with the first replaceable face paddle. There are issues with that. It adds quite a bit of weight. The spin is around 1,800, which these days is not top tier. And they're very open about that. But something I really respect Pickle for is the fact that they put this out and they said, listen, our pros aren't going to play with these replaceable faces because the spin isn't at the level they need it. But 1,800 is a decent amount of spin. And I'd say that most 90% of players out there would be fine with that. And it's great to be able to take that sticker off and replace it and refurbish your spin. Do you remember the price of those? I think they're like $20
some dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's nice. And it seems to be a simple technology. And I know that others are working on the same technology and will have peel ply options and not just, so this pickle skin it's similar to a peel ply, but they produce it here in the U.S. So it's not the same method where they're using a peel ply. It's kind of engraved onto the surface. Somehow I was talking with the owners and they were giving me the lowdown on it. But anyway, I've got the paddles upstairs in the box. I haven't opened them yet. That'll be next in our line of things we're going to be hitting with, Eddie.
All right.
But yeah, I think weighting of the paddle to optimize swing weight, twist weight, hand speed, spin, durability, overall durability, clearly
Absolutely.
not just on the spin, but also cores. If core goes out on the paddle, you can't swap out the core. You're just screwed. You've got to get a new paddle. I think now's an appropriate time to talk about, the Proton paddles. The Series 1, which is their nanotech surface, which is not a textured surface, but it grabs the ball with friction. And I know they've had some issues getting out the paddles that they sold to people as far back as February. They ran into a supply chain issue and couldn't get the paddles made quickly enough. They did. I talked with the owner, and he's offered everybody who used my code to buy a paddle and still hasn't received it, $100 gift certificate to the Proton shop so they can use it toward a paddle. They can use it for a bag, or just $100 flat. So it's frustrating, I'm sure, to anybody who still hasn't received the paddle, or he would refund the money if they want it. So those are coming. I talked to him. He's got the materials, and they're manufacturing the paddles and sending those out. So anyway, if they can get their, production up to par, I think that's going to be a hugely popular paddle. And, if the spin stays where it is on the paddles that I tested. He did say he's sending me the 11 millimeter, which is what Andre and Megan play with. Andre Daskew, Megan Dizon. I played with I think it was their 14 or 13 millimeter. So we'll see those. So I think that paddle will definitely last longer. The spin on that paddle will definitely last longer than any of the other textured surfaces. So that's another avenue I think that we will see paddle manufacturers start to develop this coefficient of friction style of spin. Yeah. What else, Eddie?
No, I agree 100% with all of your thoughts. I in perimeter weighting in particular is one that I've been kind of following for a long time because we've seen it in other sports. We've seen it in tennis. We've seen it in golf, where they have cavity back irons and, woods that where 95% of the weight of the head is not on the face. It's in everything else that gives structure and mass behind that face, but the face itself is not a huge component in terms of overall weight. And I think we're headed there. These foam perimeters, foam is not a very heavy substance, but if you embed that foam with tungsten or something along those lines, you could be on to something that would stretch out that sweet spot a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And vibration resistance is another one you could dovetail with perimeter weighting. Use sorbothane. It's a rubber that's the most vibration damping, one of the most vibration damping materials out there, and it's dense. You could use that as the perimeter weighting and get a double whammy where you're reducing the vibration and putting weight where it's needed on the paddle. Somebody's going to run away with that idea. I've been thinking about it for a while.
Maybe so, but I think there's a lot of improvements to be made in just how the weight sits on a paddle.
For sure. Okay.
Got another question for us?
No, let's move on. I think we're close to the limit here. I did want to mention some kind of gear of the week. So Braydon from PBEffect has some new tungsten tape options. He always had 1 gram per inch tungsten tape, and now he has a lighter weight, so 0.5 grams per inch option. And there's new packaging. So you can see this is the heavier 1 gram per inch. This is the 0.5 grams per inch. And the packaging is really slick on these. I think it's much improved. The old ones weren't bad either, the packaging, but they still has the handy ruler. I really enjoyed that,
I like that
on their packaging.
I don't recall any packaging being sent to me before.
With rulers on it?
From Amazon when I purchased.
Okay, so you just got the roll. Okay,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, he had a previous packaging was like a kind of a hard plastic shell with a cardboard backing, and it had the ruler on it, and I really enjoyed the ruler, and I was hoping that wouldn't go away. So that's just, you got inches here, and you can just put your tape on there and cut it, for 3 grams or 1.5 grams, whatever you want it. And yeah, so go check these out. They're super easy to purchase also on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. And the more I use this, the less I like lead, not just for the kind of toxicity of lead. And I know that some people debate that, it's not that toxic when you just touch it. Don't put it in your mouth. Regardless, feels safer. Also, this stuff is so reusable.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You stick it on the side of your paddle.
I think I've restuck mine probably 10 times, and it's still
it just
perfect.
Keeps going and keeps going and keeps going.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know what adhesive that is, but it's
really nice.
And the tungsten itself is fairly flexible.
Yeah.
So it doesn't retain shape like lead does. Once you kind of try and round that corner on the bottom of a paddle, it kind of just takes that shape forever.
Yeah, for sure.
So when would you use half-gram tungsten tape?
If you wanted more dispersal of the weight over a larger area of the edge of the paddle, then similar to kind of what Selkirk has for their tungsten tape, and those are even lighter weight. So I think, there is some merit to that. I think more needs to be tested on whether or not denser tape is more effective, because you can put a lot of weight in an inch. Let's stack up 3 1-inch strips of 1 gram per inch lead tape right at 4 and 8, right where the paddle flares out from the neck. That's going to increase your twist weight a ton. But the question is that going to have the same performance benefits as 3 grams spread out either over 3 inches or even 6 inches on the edges? Now, clearly, further you go up the side of the edges, the larger the swing weight gets, right? So there's always kind of, trade-offs back and forth. But I think the wider you can spread it without making the swing weight out of control, the better it's going to make the paddle feel. That's kind of my thought. So I think, people need those options anyway.
Just a cleaner look, though, than just cutting a 1 gram per inch strip in half.
For sure. For sure. And Braydon, I don't know if you saw his latest podcast, but he collaborated with Volair with a PBEffect graphic Mach 2 Forza. So that's Braydon's main paddle, plays with the Mach 2 Forza.
What's it look like?
It's a very slick looking paddle.
Yeah.
So you've seen PBEffect's logo. It's that kind of spread wide on the paddle. It looks really nice. I'm going to try to get my hands on one.
Same color scheme, that blue and white?
I can't remember the color scheme. But anyway, it looks great, and all of the profits are going to a really good cause. It's Braydon's Braydon's brother tragically passed away with cancer last year, and he was only 20 years old. And it's all the profits are going to an organization that his brother started to give gift packages, gift boxes to terminal patients.
So good cause.
Really, really good cause. So thanks, Braydon, for sending me these. I would have bought them anyway, but he mailed them to me when he got the new packaging and the new option, and highly recommended.
I was going to say, if you actually buy something, John, it's probably pretty good.
I would buy this, for sure. For sure. All right, Eddie.
But we got to wrap things up.
We got a
busy night ahead. We've already gone through a whole bunch of stuff today, but got to move on to some other things.
Well, a pleasure sitting across from you once again, and we'll see you next week.
Let's do it again.
All right.
All right.